And welcome to Sly REcords podcast, a Christian conversation about pop news and video games. I'm Sly Carl, and today we're joined with a co-host, Thomas. Say hello, Thomas.
Hello, Thomas.
That's great. I always love to hear the hello Thomases in the world. So first we're just going to jump right into the news. The first article that I've chosen to talk about is that PlayStation is revamping their PlayStation Plus subscription service. Most people are talking about how it could be a Game Pass competitor, but Sony most likely and does have different plans. There is three tiers in the PlayStation Plus now, with PlayStation Essential taking over what we all know what PlayStation Plus is right now. PlayStation Extra adds some games, and then we also have PlayStation Premium. Do you have anything to add, Thomas, on that regard?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I see it as a chance for them to raise prices on things. And as somebody who normally does the minimum, I can see them adding, like, in the past with PlayStation Plus, they've given some pretty decent AAA titles on a regular basis. Obviously, they're not giving them out every month, but I feel like with this new tier system, they're only going to restrict those to the higher tiers, except for rarely, is what I feel. They may not do that. It might just be an unjustified fear, but that's what I feel like is going to happen. I used to do Xbox, and I know Xbox does kind of a tiered membership, not quite as extreme with the tiers, but like that's kind of how it is. Unless you're at the highest tier, you don't get everything. Your highest tier, you get everything and then some.
Mm-hmm.
But at those lower tiers, you're not really getting as much. I'm worried that PlayStation's going to head that route with this, and that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this, even though it's going to be like covered to death like everywhere else that you might kick over a rock,
Yeah,
is that I've heard multiple different outlets and like YouTubers talk about this, and they bring up probably like 5 different things they think that this subscription service actually is, and most of it is like, I don't want to say they're getting it wrong, it's just that they're not quite putting the pieces together in the way I think that Sony just put it out there.
hmm
PlayStation Plus Essential is just what PlayStation Plus, what we have right now. That's just
yeah,
what you and me are doing. Any other PlayStation Plus user, that's what it is. And then everything else is just add-ons on top of that. And it's mostly because PlayStation now, their streaming service, is just being roped into and put underneath one banner instead of having two different models. They have one model now with two extra tiers on top
yeah.
of it.
Hearing it
So
and including that, I feel like that'll increase the number of people who do the PlayStation Now type stuff.
yes,
I do see that going forward. I just worry that what it will become later, not necessarily what it is immediately coming, will be one where it allows them to rope off some of those nicer benefits that you've gotten in the past, kind of thing. I
some
don't
of
know if
those.
that makes sense, or maybe it's just paranoid me.
Well, some people have brought up the idea of the free demos that we got through PlayStation Plus
Yeah,
this year and last year. Like Resident Evil Village was one that was free for PlayStation Plus users, I believe, and that might go all the way back to the most expensive tier, where it is you get all of these exclusive access stuff for that tier. Um, I mean, that's somewhat to be concerned about, but still, you're paying for early access on a game that's not done, so
yeah,
that's your decision. Um, the mid tier extra, it's the closest thing to what actually Game Pass would be, where you have a huge library of games, and
Mhm.
here it is, go get it, go play whatever game you want in this, and then that's what you do. You download it, blah blah.
Yeah, and which I do see filling a niche that is currently needed because game rentals isn't a thing anymore. Like you
That's
can't just rent a game,
that is
play it for
100%
a little
sure.
while.
Yep.
And so it kind of fills that niche, that being able to play a game, you're not going to go back and replay it. You might just rush through it. I know certain players who this like really goes um, into their wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm,
can think that that is what they do. They rush through a game and then they never touch it again. And they're
mm-hmm,
fine with that. If they
mm-hmm,
want any more content, they'll go watch a YouTuber or a streamer.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and so I do think that that niche is being filled. I feel like in some ways it's because they're trying to increase the number of people using services like the PlayStation Now, because there's not a ton of people using it. You know, well, maybe there's a lot more than I think. I personally don't know a lot of people who use that service.
Yeah,
Uh,
you won't run into someone ever and go like, "Oh, you use PlayStation Now? That's interesting. Tell me about it."
yeah, exactly. So it will increase that, and I do see a niche need. I just worry about what it will become. That's really what it is for me, especially somebody who has a pretty tight budget when it comes to games.
Mm-hmm.
And I like being able to have um, uh, PlayStation Plus and know what I'm getting with it. You know?
Yeah, with subscription service, you have like, oh, for this 6 months, this game is a part of the library. Then it'll go away. Then it'll come back for some reason because of
Yeah.
licensing deals. It's 100% be worried about. It's just the volume, what the library might be. You might satisfy, okay, that is big enough that I will get my money's worth out of it. And then if you do go up to the premium tier, that is where most of like actual PlayStation Now is right now. And you have access to the PlayStation 2, PSP games, PlayStation 3 games,
Mhm.
because that's where the backwards compatibility is, and that's where all those retro games, if you ever would want to dive into, and that's where
Which
they
I
put
love
themselves.
those retro games. I do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to me, I say I feel negatively about it, but it's more of I have mixed feelings because I'm worried about what it will become, even though I
Mm-hmm.
see some pretty cool things that it can do.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
just, like I said, it just makes me a little worried. Where, the tearing off always makes me a little worried as a person who doesn't want to spend too much money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. We'll move on to story number two. I picked so last week, PlayStation announced that they're buying another studio, which is kind of more of the norm. So it's not like, oh, that's super
Yeah.
newsworthy. But the weird thing is that this studio doesn't have a long history with Sony. All the past studios that they've acquired, like Bungie or Insomniac or Housemarque, all of those studios they've had like multiple years working with them, working with exclusives,
Yeah.
and then putting it out. And then Sony just buys Haven. Haven is a studio that is just came into existence probably 1 or 2 years ago. It
What have they put
is
out? I've never even heard of them until you mentioned this to me.
they haven't put out anything yet.
Okay, so
So
that's why I hadn't heard of them. Okay, so I'm not crazy for not knowing who these people are.
so here's a little bit of the history. So there are a bunch of old Ubisoft devs who did Assassin's Creed stuff. So then they go and they form their own little group after they leave Ubisoft, and then Google goes like, okay, we're going to sign this agreement with you. You're going to come into our fold and make exclusive games for us, for Stadia. Uh, that marketplace kind of just shutters and falls apart. And so her studio, J Radium Studio Haven, is now left to their own devices, which is bad because they don't have financial backing, but good because
Hmm.
they have their own creative process they can do. And so they go and they find publishers to work with, and Sony was one of those publishers that they've worked with. So I believe I heard that they were working with Sony for like a past year on a project, and what I read about it is that they've gone through the process of the dating period, and now they're like, okay, let's get married, kind of idea.
Okay, yeah, I
That
could see that. Yeah, that's a pretty good.
that we've
That's a
worked.
pretty good comparison there.
Mhm. So they worked well enough together, and they're like, okay, we're on the same page. Let's go forward and make this official. Let's stay together. The biggest thing that the curiosity is though, why would you buy them and not go with the same process you bought everybody else. Like, you've dated
Mm-hmm.
plenty of other people already, and then you could just stick with Haven. One of the things is that I got from this article, the article from gamesindustry.biz, was that the ending of the article kind of leads to this idea that they're working for a games as a service experience, as a live service game. Let's see if I can find if I have the
So,
live.
I mean, like, it is definitely still a different type of relationship they have with the studio, but it could it could be because they feel like they have more control since they haven't established themselves. Even if they haven't established themselves with Sony, they have established themselves with anyone. Then maybe that's when the Sony's thoughts going in. I don't know. Maybe it's less malicious than that. I'm just such a cynic.
Uh, yeah, I mean, like, the idea is that you form a studio. Two
Yeah,
years later, you get bought. You don't have a resume really because you have a studio. We don't know that what you're working on is actually going to come out the door and be put into
yeah,
gamers' hands and to be played. We have no idea if that's going to be possible or not because you haven't proved that with us.
yeah. You have no reputation that you're using.
Yeah, you just have past representations working for other people, but not for yourself in that regards of helming a studio, taking charge. But I think is what Sony saw with what they had was that it's a live service game. It's a game that has legs that it can
Mm-hmm.
progress and stuff. That's super important right now since that their portfolio isn't that expansive on that. Like, you can go and play multiplayer games on the platform, let's say like Apex Legends or um, uh, Gran Turismo 7 or any of those games where they have some legs, but you don't have this like day in day out game like what Destiny is that does have those long term legs that people come back to and play and give you
Yeah,
money and have
yeah.
a
You
subscription.
know, there's a core that you're getting with that.
hmm hmm So, a quote from Herman Hulst from the article. They just put the games industry that business puts in live service games, but allows us to build larger worlds, allows us to create meaningful social connections between players. It's just the idea is that that's what they're getting. They're getting that niche that they don't have yet, and that's why
Mm.
they bought Bungie, and that's why they're probably buying Haven.
I mean, that's it. It's interesting because like putting those two, especially in the same category, because buying Bungie, you get so much with it. But I mean, like Destiny, you have a huge field that's going to keep coming back to Destiny. You know, that is a revenue cow that's not going to go dry anytime soon. But like this new studio, I don't know. Like it's much more risky, even though, like you said, it's in that same niche. I think it's a much more risky buy though because of that. There's no proven anything, and so that's why I question some of it behind it. Say things like, well, like I said, like maybe it's so that they can continue, like they can have a little bit of the say in the development of this company as they progress some of their things. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, their deal that they have with Destiny is that they have like no say in what the creative process
Exactly.
is, and maybe they do have more of a say in what Haven does. The other thing I think of is that I think Herman Hulst and other people from Sony have worked with uh, Jade Raymond personally in the past for quite some time, going
Okay.
from like a Ubisoft Assassin's Creed thing where they've talked probably when you put in this game on our platform, all that kind of stuff, and they've seen those games ship, they've seen those games be successful, and they've seen where Assassin's Creed is most likely going towards is that super life service system. But who
Yeah.
knows exactly what they have got cooking. But you do bring up Destiny, and that leads us to my third article that I brought, and that is that Destiny 2 makers blast YouTube takedown system in a wildlife lawsuit. So this is a developing story that happened like 2 weeks ago. There was this huge takedown with a bunch of YouTube content covering Bungie that just got random DMCA takedowns notices that the videos are basically just gone from viewing. When the YouTubers may get big complaint about it, and then Destiny responded to that, and then now it's that Destiny is responding to Google in an aspect that all of the takedowns were just done in a rogue copyright takedown notice. It's not, here is the content and this needs to be taken down. It's just a bunch of Destiny content that just randomly decide, oh, this is flagged now, so we must take it down.
Yeah, pretty massive and pretty crazy, like how they did it.
Yes, it's, and the lawsuit will, you can read more about it from the article I'm reading from Kotaku, but it talks about the beginning of that, but it talks about how these actions are not being taken at their crest of Bungie. That's what Bungie is quoted upon, but that the reason why this is going on from the takedown side was that this was a somewhat of a hack, in a sense that the group has taken control of the DMC part of the lot of YouTube's algorithm, and just they're talking about how problematic Bungie's content guidelines are for making YouTube content, and then how big the net cast by DMC and YouTube, how it's not being protective of the content, but it's just
Mhm.
it's so vague that they're like, if we can do this with Destiny, we can do this with anything in that regards.
Yeah, that's the can of worm that gets interrupt and opened up with it. It's like, where does it end? I do understand, like, the I know this is a difference of opinion for a lot of people. I do understand protecting your intellectual property. Like, if you own it, it's yours. I'm protecting your own intellectual property. I get that. Like, they did the work, they should get the credit. But the wide sweeping nature of it is the concern for me, because it also opens up other problems. Like, I do YouTube content, and I get bots that are trying to, like, systematically look for things that other people haven't content created it. And so it's like, even though they don't own any rights to this thing, it gets caught in this web that they have out there. Now, big content creators who actually do have rights to things doing big speaking stuff like that, it just makes it harder for people to get their stuff out, I feel like. And it starts opening up these possible big problems down the road. Um, Especially the more people that are going to try doing things like this. And Destiny and Bungie, like, they're a big company, so them being the first ones to kind of say this. No, I don't even want to say like they're bullying their way into it, but they don't have to. Like, they can just make a polite request, and it's like, okay, we have to listen. So I don't know. It opens up, like I said, opens up a can of worms.
Yeah, I just think it's the weirdest thing is that Destiny's looking at the issue, and they're like, you can go to the Twitter feed, and they're like, we're not doing these takedowns. Even some of their own Destiny's from their official from their official YouTube channel, some of their videos were DMC takedown notices on those videos,
Yeah.
and the problem is that YouTube is using a third party who's doing these takedowns from like an automatic standpoint, and that Bungie is looking at YouTube saying that you're not helping us doing whatever the setup that you're using for this legality or these takedown
Mm-hmm.
notices isn't how we want it to be happen. And this is being brought upon by this group that is forcing this new wave agenda on, saying that, hey, we can do this, so you need to make this
Yeah.
fix this problem. It does shine light on the bigger issue of who has the rights to do these takedown stuff, and then like there's too much power for YouTube just to hit you with a notice, and then things just go away for this YouTube creators and stuff. But it's just that one of the videos, the accounts that they were doing these takedowns on, there's this manifesto on why this is happening, and it's quotes, "If you're looking to place blame, place it on YouTube for its sloppy copyright takedown system and Bungie for ignoring this issue for so long." Um, sure, but I mean, I don't know. It's
I don't
like
know. I do think YouTube needs a better system for all of that down and their notices and stuff like this. That like I was mentioning, like I get sent stuff for. I literally know the person who wrote this song and have written permission from them, and it's not even like it's a parody song or anything. Sometimes, which is a whole different can of worms. But then, like YouTube is allowing it to get flagged as copyrighted material, and so yeah, they need to release what they're doing better, and it's hard when they're dealing with these big companies because they're wanting to satisfy the company, and so they're not going to look close. They're just like, oh, let's do this wide swath of fixing the problem.
yeah, but I think the dumbest thing is that the automated system is just taking down their own stuff as
I
well.
know it's creating more problem,
It's just
and it's
it's
upsetting the person you're supposedly
you're
trying to
trying to,
appease.
yes. So, and Bungie never ever said, "Hey, these are actually stuff that we need to actually taken down." It's just this automated part of, oh,
Mm.
this stuff is flagged, so flag
Also,
this
Bungie
stuff
did
some
not
more.
request them to work on any of this.
No, it's all of this is done
Oh, see,
through.
I thought Bungie had asked them to work on it, and the way they tackled it was so messed up. That's what I was under the impression.
It's the idea is that you have these guidelines. So if you go to Destiny's content creator site, you have these guidelines that you're supposed to go through. That, here's what we want you to do. That doesn't give you a legal contract or whatever, because in their
Mm-hmm.
states of terms of use, you don't have any rights to do YouTube stuff with their stuff. There's some legal
Yeah.
jargon that you can go through and whatever. The problem is that if all of these companies continue to let YouTube do these like regulatory processes of taking stuff down for on the behalf of the actual creator of the content, you're being lazy in the sense that you don't exactly know what's being taken down or
Yeah.
what for what reason. And that's the crutch of what the people who want this to be fixed is talking about. But that leads to the question: what is the answer? How do you fix the idea that we do want people to have their IP protected? We
Yeah.
also have a fair use to use that product, but from what regards do you say that the person does have the right to uh,
Yeah, there
have the
has to
fair
be
use for
a
this?
really good, clear, defined line.
Yeah, and to me it sounds like where it's gonna have effect of who the haves and the haves nots. That say if I want to make a YouTube content on upcoming video game, let's say Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, um,
Mm-hmm.
I think instead of being, hey, you pay $60 for the game and here you go, you're gonna be charged here. You pay us 60 or $75, and the $15 is your license to do YouTube content or stream content or fair use content to alter this in a fashion where you get money and we get money from you creating stuff from us. But the people
Mm-hmm.
who don't have that, they cannot stream the game whatsoever. I think that's what the road that we're going down is that we're
Well, I
gonna
mean,
pay more for doing what we're doing right now.
yeah, but in some ways, I see that as a better direction than like essentially user agreements right now, because that's essentially what they're trying to do with what the user agreements, and those are just they're garbage. They don't even hold up in court. I mean, because it's such a joke.
Mm-hmm.
But then having like you were saying, like an actual pay gate to get through to get to
Mm-hmm.
that content, then it holds up in court. Like there, people can or can't demand, and people are making bank off streaming. They are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to say like real small streamers who aren't making any money, like, let's make them have to go through Paygate too. But really, people make millions off of streaming. So having some sort of protection for intellectual property, like the creator of the game in the first place, I don't see a lot wrong with that. And some people would, I know personally some people who would disagree with me. And part of that is just because how I feel about intellectual property and the rights thereof. So yeah, I could see that being a route that this ends up taking it, but I think that companies need to take a little bit more responsibility for that, and then situations like this with YouTube, just using some third-party person to try and filter it and filtering even Bungie's own material. That will become a thing of the past the more involved these big companies get.
Maybe police their own stuff in more of an actual way of doing that.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say on this is that it leads us to, okay, so there is some games out there that have a content creator mode on the game where they'll take licensed music out of the game and or they'll do some stuff. The problem is, though, that those aren't designed for consumer use in a way. An example of that is that when Life is Strange True Colors came out last year in the summer, there is a content creator option on it, but that game is so heavily focused on the main character's pastime of playing music. There is plenty of scenes where the character is playing music, but in the content creator mode, there is no music, and it's just a bunch of people dancing to nothing, basically, in those cutscenes. So, I mean, a company can do much more, and then they decide to stop when they don't realize how far they should go. If you're going to make something that's content viewer streaming appropriate in that regards, you're going to have to make your own music and make sure that is licensed in a way that DMC stuff isn't affected by it.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to our podcast. Just took a short break so we can go back to what we're playing. So, what we're playing, it's been Tiny Tina's WonderLands. So, when so.
If I'm here,
Watch out behind you.
Why are behind me? So when I got you a bunch of PlayStation money for Christmas this year, the first thing you really told me is that you just pre-ordered Tiny Tina's Wonderland. So the question I have is why so aggressive with the pre-order is what I'm asking.
I usually don't pre-order games, but with Borderlands 3, I got a pre-order of that because somebody bought it for me. And so when it came out, it was really fun to play it right away off of that pre-order. And like I got to play it with you and our other buddy, and it was because he bought it for me. And that idea of being able to play it right out the gate with you guys, and I know you guys tend to rush through these kind of games. You do. And it's because they're fun. Like, I understand why you do, but then, like, I'm stuck there having barely touched a game, and you guys have finished it. So I wanted to make sure that I'd be able to play this right out the gate with you guys, because I'd have more group time with you if I was able to get it right out the gate. Because I thought for sure you two specifically would pre-order it. So I wanted to be able to play with you guys right out the gate. That was a big thing for me. Plus, I know since Borderlands 1, I have liked all of the Borderlands games. I've enjoyed them all. Some people didn't like 1. Some people started liking the games at 2. I've liked them all. And so, knowing that, I felt like it was a safe pre-order for me, because I've enjoyed them all. So, that was the other one for me. It's just, I know I'm going to enjoy this game. Might as well get the pre-order, be able to play with my friends right out the gate.
So that's I mean, like I've played Borderlands 2. I played Borderlands 2 a lot more than I ever really wanted to, and that's the reason for me was is that I had a PlayStation Vita at the time, that little
Hmm.
handheld gym, and I didn't have that much money at the time, and there was like, okay, I knew a game would be good. I knew Borderlands was, people liked it, and so I just played Borderlands 2, basically almost all of it on my PlayStation Vita in handheld mode. And I mean, I'm not gonna say I didn't like the game. I didn't hate the game. I would say that that it's such a good first person game series to go through and just go through that RPG elements, and it's like has good
Yeah,
shooting and good quality, like level up skill tree stuff that's like it does scratch an itch that I think everyone will appreciate and like. And then there's aspects of those games I just don't like. But what do you like about Tiny Tina's Wonderland versus those previous games?
I like the customization. Your character isn't this pre-made character. You're creating them, and so like that RPG element. That I mean, I know that they're playing with like that D&D feel in mind, which I'm a big fan of D&D. Um, it gives it a little bit more oomph in the D&D possibility because you are customizing your character, and like yeah, you custom your character in regular Borderlands, you do, um, but you got like this pre-ordered like story hooks and storyline for your character and all of that. It's all pre-developed for you, what you look like even. And so unless there's like more meat in the game, which like for me, I really liked aspects of like the Necromancer. Well, the Necromancer has no extra story meat to her. She doesn't. She's what you get out the gate is all the story meat you get with her. And so it was like, that's kind of lame. This game, you're developing your story as you go, and so those other characters that have the extra story meat, they're in this game. They're essentially the background characters, so you don't have to worry about like, oh, my character's not going to have that story meat to him. But you're developing your character and getting all of that story along the way. I don't know. It's fun to me because of that. Um, and I do like that there's way more options, customs classes, because it's doing that same thing. Like you're creating your character from the ground up. So there's way more options, like just story classes and things like that. Um, I mean, that's fun. And then they offer multi-classing, which I haven't gotten to yet, but I'm excited to do once I can, because like that's a whole new element to the game, making this combined version of multiple play styles. Um, I don't know. There's so many little things too. Like, I like the way that they have changed like your RNG in the game. It's based off exploring the game, getting more content. Those lucky dice that you find in the game, that plays to my strengths because I love that kind of stuff. I love exploring and finding those little things. It makes me want to play more. Um, and you don't have to like equip an item. Like before, to get higher RNG, I think you had to do like your Iridian trinket slot. Like, oh, there's a lucky die right there.
Let's go get it.
I don't know if you see it. Uh, like to raise your RNG to find an item in the game. That's cool. Then there's like the little temple things you find like to get the raise the amount of cash you get in the game. Um, to do just a series of short little quests to make it so that you can get more cash. That's cool. I like that they do things like that, rather than it just being some item you find or something like that. I know it's not huge, but those little things they add up for me. I I do feel like the story is fun. I like D&D. So the idea that it plays into that universe, that D&D universe a lot, it's pretty cool. And there's so much, like, I feel like the humor. So Tiny Tina is all, or not. I mean, Borderlands has always kind of had that like middle school boy humor. Like, all over the place. And in like the D&D feel, I feel like some of that is controlled a little bit more, while still allowing a lot of that same kind of, oh yeah, we're going to be over the top and play to like these obvious jokes and things like that. But maybe it's because I feel like it fits more. But like some things that I'm like normally would be like, oh, that's inappropriate. But like in a D&D universe, okay, like it's not as big of a joke. Like I haven't seen Moxie anywhere, and I haven't seen Ellie anywhere. But the voice actresses have been involved in this product, so it's not like they got them out of a job. But their characters are extremely inappropriate. They are. It's just a fact. And like to make them like you can still have like that little boy humor without being like so inappropriate and over the top like those characters are. I mean, it's a fact. Those characters are over the top and inappropriate, and they know that's part of their character is to be inappropriate, you know. So, like, I feel like the way that they've handled some of that humor is better in this game. But then again, I haven't beaten this game. I haven't played all that far into this game, even honestly. The combat I think feels smooth. But it's one of those systems that Borderlands has always built on its own combat. You know, it's always gotten slightly better with each game, and I feel like this is that same kind of thing. Well, they take the best aspects of the previous games and build on it.
They built on it. It's grown. You can tell that it does feel better. That they took some of the things that they did good in Borderlands 3, and then they took some things that they did good do in Borderlands 2, for like i.e. the DLC the space is upon, and they just morphed it into this very special little game. Do you know what the rating, the ERSP rating it is for Tiny Tina's Wonderland?
I don't.
It's rated teen.
It is.
Do you know the rating for the other Borderlands games?
Well, those are M, I thought. Or maybe I was wrong.
They are M, I believe. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay.
I think
yeah,
it is...
I'm actually kind of surprised this one's T because of those past games being M. I still feel not sure about playing this one in front of my kids. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that would make me say that so far in the game that would make me go, no, I'm not going to play this in front of my kids. But definitely the other Borderlands games, I'm like, no way I'm playing those in front of my kids with several things. Like, just the things that, like, the bad guys scream at you.
There are several
that
things
alone.
that I'll be like, I'm not going to tell you that I'm playing Borderlands 3 right now because I don't think it's appropriate for you to watch me play this game. Even
exactly, yeah.
in the aspect of, like, any, like, other M-rated games I would play, I'd be like, I think this is perfectly fine, but there's plenty of stuff in past Borderlands games where it's like, you heavily know where the line is, and then you heavily go, I'm just going to cross it, I don't really care.
Yeah, they're like, we know we're crossing it, we're going to cross it anyways.
What other improvements do you think they've specifically done in this game? From like
I like the spells.
I love the spells.
I love the spells. I've never been a fan of grenades, which is why I liked the character Zane so much. Because you never, like, if you play him, certain ways, which I don't know anyone who doesn't play him, where you never rely on grenades at all. If you play him that way, I thought it was so fun. And part of that, like I said, I don't use grenades, and spells are so much better than grenades. I like the character I'm playing right now. He's all about spells. That's like he doesn't even have he doesn't have an ability. He just does spells. And he's so fun. So I think that is fun. And spells have multiple different types of mechanics. Like one of my spells, I have to hold it down to cast, and then it does its ability. Well, another one, like, which plays into it, I mean, here you can watch right here, like these explosive barrels everywhere on all the Borderlands games. Well, this one has an aura that pulls things in before it activates, so you can use it to activate those explosive things on guys. I mean, just little things like that with the spells, that's so cool. And that's just that one aspect. Um, so I mean, like, I think that is an improvement, just the way they did that, because it's a partially because I wasn't a fan of spells, or I mean, grenades.
Yeah.
But this is a much better function in the game. I think it flows better. It's cooler. It's more interesting because all the different, like, there's the ones that, they call them fire and forgets, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's the ones that just cast an aura around you.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. And there's summon spells where you can summon pets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just cool aspects. That is a huge one for me. Is the spells is one of the things I like about this game. I mean, it's a clean shooter in general. Like, it's real easy to, like, target acquisition. You get the different feel of the different guns. I mean, the games are always about the guns. Um, and so that's definitely a thing. But look at this. This is a named guy I've never seen before. Um, like the environment's fun. I love the. Oh, I forgot. I almost forgot. I can't believe I hadn't mentioned it yet. The world, the open world board. You know the part I'm talking about?
Yes. The
That
D&D miniature board that we walk
tabletop.
around.
Yeah, the tabletop board we walk around on. It's such a fun little aspect of the game that really gives that D&D feel to it. And like there's whole quests you can complete while doing that. That's so cool. Um, you never have to like go to one of the actual locations to complete these quests. You can just walk around on the miniatures board and complete quests. That's a fun little thing. I've never seen anything like it especially in a shooter. I've never seen anything like it. So it's so cool that they added that in there. Um,
Yeah, the overworld map is fantastic. Like other games have done that in the past, especially like older RPG games have done it.
mhm.
But the contextualization of that world building aspect of the game, and we'll probably talk more about this, but the fact that you're a character who is playing a character in a tabletop
Mhm.
game that is stylized as what the rest of Borderlands game, but from the viewpoint of Tiny Tina, and that continued contextualization of that world allows for this world to be as crazy as Tiny Tina would want it to be. It it feels more real or more believable than any other Borderlands game before it, because it's not stuck to the Vault Hunter formula of, oh,
Mhm.
it's we're gonna go get this vault, but we're never going to open a vault because open the we can't show you the monkey's paw scenario thing. You can't
Yep.
get to that point. We have to tell you a story up to that point, but not do that. But in this, you are free to do whatever you want because Tiny Tina, she's directing it, she's putting it on the board, and then you're just going
It's
through
all in
the.
her mind, which allows for craziness, but it still keeps you in that same world. While, like you said, it allows you to do whatever. Like, it allows you to do whatever you want. It allows like I was saying before, it allows that building of that custom character, um, which is important to me. You can feel invested in your character while you don't need some lore reason for your character being a certain way. I mean, your character is cat ears,
Mm-hmm.
and it's silly, and it feels like it fits in the Borderlands world. But like, if you saw a person in the Borderlands world with cat ears, you'd have to be like, "Wait, why do they have cat ears? Like, what's the world's reasoning for it?" You know?
Mm-hmm. Because
Look, there's another lucky die.
where'd you go? Because you can tell a story all you want in any shape or fashion, but you have to go, okay, here's what we're telling and
Where will fate lead me next?
how we're telling it.
Hmm.
But with this, Tiny Tina can just go like, okay, sorry, it's not scary
What
enough
will
for
fill my
you.
enemy's hearts with the most
I,
dread?
I'm going to add it's a little bit more spooky trees for you, and then they magically appear. It's not because it's magically appearing before your eyes, but it's appear in you because we're playing a tabletop
Yep.
fantasy
And the funny thing
role-playing
is, you say
experience.
that example, which sounds kind of silly, but that literally happens in this game. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, you think it's not crazy enough for you? Fine, I'm gonna change it. Are you happy now? And then the world changes right in front of you because of that. And I mean, it's fun, it's silly, but like I was saying before, like it feels more appropriate for my kids. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head that I would be like, oh, I wouldn't play this in front of them. I don't trust it yet because it is the Borderlands universe. But if it is rated teen, that would definitely be like raise the chances for me being willing to do that. Because like I was willing to play like Horizon Zero Dawn, and that's a rated game.
Yes, I think it's teen rated for violence, blood, justice, themes, partial nudity, language, and crude humor. I
Mm,
think all the other Borderlands, the crude humor in those Borderlands is much more uh, extreme crude humor is what I would say.
yeah.
But then that's the only hesitation I have really with this game from like just pick this game up and play it. It's like you don't know what that story that they're going to give you or that side commentary if it's appropriate in that sense of this makes total sense or yes or
Mm-hmm.
no. So what do you think this legacy of this game is going to be? Like, we haven't like scratched the whole entire surface
Yeah,
on this
we've
game,
we've barely touched it.
but
But
it's one thing I like to think about is like, where does this game, where is this game 10 years from now, kind of thing? Like, what do you
yeah,
think of it?
what impact this game might have on other
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
I mean, like I could see this changing some things about some game genres, especially those that are a little bit more tongue in cheek. This is Borderlands are very well known for being, very tongue in cheek type games. The way that it's built like this whole new niche now for being able to be a game in a game. I think that could go somewhere
I love
with
that
some other
idea.
games.
I love this idea of a game within a game when you're telling a story, but that story has a story within it. Because Shakespeare would do that with some of his plays, where there
Yeah, with
being
a lot of his plays. And
his
so the
actors
idea
would
of doing
project
that
that.
with
Yes.
this game, with this big AAA title, it's an RPG style game. Um, it's a shooter style game. To to do this with it, I think it's not the last we have seen of something like this.
break the connection.
I think it's gonna bring some others to this table. Yeah, it's not a completely unique idea, like you said. Shakespeare even did it, but just doing it in a big AAA title like this in a video game, I think it's gonna stick around, this idea. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see where that goes because I, as I've already stated with several things, character based anything is important to me. And the idea that you can still have an important character that builds into the theme of the universe without having to have them tethered to anything. Um, I, I think that is cool. And it makes it feel like, yeah, my character can be pretty awesome. Um, but he doesn't have to be backed into this corner of this type of personality or this type of anything. Um, so I'm excited to see how that goes. I could totally be crazy and it could disappoint me. Um, but I don't know. I'm hopeful. But,
I'm hopeful in this aspect that Gearbox looks at Borderlands and is like, oh, this is successful, but they don't look at okay, let's keep making Borderlands. Let's make Borderlands 4 and
mhm.
5 and
Let's keep
6.
beating this horse into the ground.
Instead they're like, okay, let's look at some aspects that people really do love, and they did love like that. They did love Tiny Tina as a character. They did love the aspect of this standalone DLC stuff, which I think is fantastic doing standalone DLC. And
Mhm.
expand upon that. Go in a creative direction and that and go and don't learn some lessons that you know from the past, but then go for a new horizon. And I think they somewhat try to do that in this game, and then they somewhat just stay to their guns in a sec. They literally just stayed with the idea of millions upon millions of guns, and then eventually the gun that you have is just completely useless. Which I have, that's a big critical response I have to WonderLands. Is just at some point, why is my gun useless compared to? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to
Wow,
me.
it's hard because you like in these games, and I run into that too. Well, I have my favorite guns, and I have my favorite gun combinations, but at some point they're going to become useless because that's how the game has to work. Um, I do feel like in the game though, because of the way that they do the spells and things like that, it doesn't bother me as much. Um, because some like this gun I'm using right now on my character, it's a level 5 gun, my main gun. But because of the way it works with the spell abilities and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because of polishing the game,
Mm-hmm.
that it works that way. It still is a viable gun at level 15 or level 16, I guess. But yeah, it won't forever be a viable gun, and
Mm-hmm.
that's just a fact of these games, and they're made to be that way. It's a looter shooter. You're supposed to be looting. You're supposed to be getting new gear the whole time. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I just think it's that weird that you take a sniper rifle and then magically 10 hours from now it does nothing, and then a
but
level.
see, in this
Skies
setting,
far.
with the new improvement things that they've done on it, magically it can be a useless gun at higher levels because they
Mm-hmm.
have resistance against that.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't bother me as much in this setting as it would in like regular Borderlands.
Mm-hmm.
So
Ah, yes. The
All right,
build.
so the last thing I want to talk about is basically what we're doing right now, co-op. I find that, well, let's just pose the question: is this game only successful in this fact that you can play it co-op? Like, is it such a niche now that if say someone else made a dinky little co-op game that was a shooter, would we be playing it as two at some point? I mean, am I wrong in thinking that?
I think it's more fun co-op. I don't think it's a necessary thing because I I beat all of Borderlands. Oh, you're dead. You're dead. I
I don't
bought
know how
all
I'm
of
dying.
Borderlands probably solo. Like thinking back to it, I played to the 20s with you, but once I got past 20s, like I played the rest of that game myself, like
Hmm.
solo, and I enjoyed the heck out of that game. It was a sweet, fun game to play. It was a good shooter. I think I could enjoy this one more so.
Mm-hmm.
I like that co-op is still a thing though, because some game studios are just like, no, we don't need a co-op anymore. I think it's more fun with the co-op. I think, as I mentioned before, I want to be able to play it with you guys, and it's so much more enjoyable playing it with you guys. I think it's still enjoyable, and I will still play it if I didn't have you guys play it. Like I said, I've played most of Borderlands 3. I wouldn't say all of Borderlands 3 solo, um, and I've really enjoyed the game, and that's just because it's a well-made game. I hope they don't go in a direction where like they're only playing solo with this game or similar games, but that's because I find it more fun to play with people. But I do think that it's still a viable, fun game, even if it was solo. But
Mm-hmm.
Gearbox, if you're listening, I would much rather it be co-op. So
don't don't just make a solo game for some weird reason that you think
yeah,
other
yeah, don't
people
do
could
that,
like.
please. It's more fun co-op. I do enjoy it, but it's more fun co-op.
I mean, like they've had playing this game. There seemed to be a little bit more like server issue wise, and like it's these games aren't going to be perfect because of you playing networking with them.
Yeah.
But and then like I played Borderlands 2 all by myself basically,
Mm-hmm.
and I put tons of hours into playing Zero, and just like I'm fine playing this by myself. But like the only reason why I bought Borderlands 3 is because I was playing with Sam and with you, and it's
Yeah.
like I that game I was like, I'm fine. But everything that we talked about beforehand with this game is like I would have played this game by myself eventually if I still didn't have anyone to play it with. But
Yeah.
the aspect of like these games are still also available to play in split screen makes it almost
I love that.
a no-brainer as well. Just like if you give me that option, then I'll probably buy your game eventually.
Yeah, I love that it has that split screen option because I play couch co-op with my boys.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that Battlefront 2, the
Mm-hmm.
newer
Mm-hmm.
Battlefront 2, had
Mm-hmm.
couch co-op. Man, we played a ton of that game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we wouldn't have played a ton of that game if it didn't have couch co-op. Because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's the fun in just sitting... I mean, some people, don't get me wrong, some people love sitting and watching other people play, and that has turned into a lucrative job for some people, is letting other people watch you play. But I personally was never one of those people, like, I go to a friend's house and you're playing Ocarina of Time. That's a game I love. I don't want to just sit and watch you play it, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to play it, too. Having couch co-op, man, yes. Yes, please. I'm all for the couch co-op. And I want my boys have been playing GoldenEye lately. It's not because that game is a masterpiece.
No, it's
It's
not a
because it has couch
masterpiece.
co-op.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why they're playing it, because it's got couch co-op, and that is such a thing that's lacking from a lot of modern games, is that option of being able to play together from the same house. I'm not going to own two PS5s. It's never
No.
going to happen, no matter how much you want me to do it, Sony. It's not going to happen.
No, yeah.
But being able to play two players on thing, I'll own two controllers. Yeah, that's something that will happen. I'll own two controllers for my PS5. I don't yet, but I will. It's just, it'll happen. And so being able to have the options with some decent fun, like this is a fun game to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to do that, I think it's a good one to be able to have that with this game.
Mm-hmm. It's just for some reason becoming like a dying breed split screen co-op.
It's a dead thing for some studios entirely.
And then all of a sudden you'll have these games, not just WonderLands, but like It Takes Two, the Dark Picture Mythology games from Supermassive, that they go and like there is a social aspect that people just go and watch those games with you and play with you, but they also give you that option now too. It seems like more and more games that are just like going away from it. There's like a handful that are just still embracing it, which is fantastic to see.
Yeah, I'm glad. That It Takes Two game is one of those games that, because of the two-player aspect of it, it made me go, I kind of want to play this game. And that was, I mean, then I heard about things that you guys were doing in the game, and it made me want to play it more.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
I never played it, and I'd never heard of it. But then the fact that it was one of those that, me and Carl are going to play this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, it's a specific two-player game. That's pretty cool,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and the you have to do these cooperative acts in order to get past obstacles, and
is there anything else you want to say before we call it a do?
No. I mean, I like the way that they've brought the classic Borderlands things and classic Borderlands feels into this game, and I feel like none of it feels forced or rushed. And if it is rated T, that's just another thing for me. That makes me feel good about playing this game. I like that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like that aspect too.
I do like this one. The other game that we're playing right now, we still are playing Apex. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I do wish that all first-person shooters had some universal controls of some kind, but because of that, I'll go back to Apex after playing this for a little while. And,
it's like, what's the ping system again? Why am I pushing
exactly.
R1?
At least this one's better than playing Destiny and then going back to Apex, because your melee is a totally different thing. And,
Yeah, having melee the same thing helps a lot.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me and talking about this game and doing the news with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, and thanks for everybody who may or may not